When we think about movie villains, we usually picture the obvious bad guy, someone who just wants power or destruction. But DreamWorks doesn't really do that. Their villains often have real reasons behind what they do. They're not just evil for fun. They're people who feel hurt, left out, or believe they're doing the right thing. Take Lord Farquaad, for example. Sure, he's controlling and selfish, but deep down he wants a perfect kingdom where everything makes sense. Or Tai Lung. He wasn't born a monster. He was a student who worked hard and felt betrayed by his master. Even Megamind, the blue-headed villain, was only bad because everyone treated him like he didn't belong. That's what makes DreamWorks different. Their stories don't just tell us who the good or bad guys are. They make us stop and think, what if the villain actually had a point? What if their biggest mistake wasn't their dream, but how far they went to reach it? In this video, we're taking a closer look at the dark truth. When DreamWorks villains were actually right. We'll dig into what these characters were really fighting for, and maybe realize that some of them weren't villains at all. 1. Lord Farquaad, Order over Freedom. Let's start with Lord Farquaad from Shrek. At first glance, he's easy to hate. Short, arrogant, and willing to throw anyone aside to get what he wants. But if we look closer, there's a reason behind his obsession with perfection and control. Farquaad's kingdom, Duloc, is spotless. The streets are clean, the people look perfect, and everything follows his rules. It's almost too perfect. And that's the point. Farquaad believes that if everything is neat and organized, life will be better for everyone. He's terrified of anything that doesn't fit into his idea of order, like fairy tale creatures, who he sees as messy and unpredictable. So when he sends them all away to Shrek's swamp, it's not just cruelty, it's fear. He's trying to protect his vision of a perfect world. And that's what makes him interesting. He's not trying to destroy the kingdom or take over the world. He just wants to make everything make sense, even if it means hurting others to do it. In a way, Farquaad represents a side of human nature we all recognize: the need to control what we don't understand. He thinks order equals happiness, but what he really creates is emptiness. Duloc looks perfect, but it has no heart. So was Lord Farquaad really evil, or was he just too focused on control to see what truly mattered? Freedom and a little bit of chaos? 2. Tai Lung, the forgotten student. Now let's talk about Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. Out of all DreamWorks villains, his story might be the most heartbreaking. He wasn't born evil. He was made that way by disappointment and rejection. Tai Lung was raised and trained by Master Shifu, who treated him like a son. From the very beginning, Tai Lung worked harder than anyone else. He mastered every move, broke every record, and dreamed of becoming the Dragon Warrior, the highest honor in Kung Fu. Everyone, including Shifu, believed he was destined for it. But when the moment came, Master Oogway said no. No reason, no explanation, just rejection. That one word shattered him. Imagine training your whole life for something, doing everything right, and then being told you're not worthy, not because of what you did, but because of who you are. Tai Lung didn't explode out of nowhere. He broke. His anger wasn't about power. It was about feeling betrayed by the person he trusted most. Of course, his response was wrong. He turned his pain into rage and tried to force what couldn't be given. But it's hard not to understand where that pain came from. Tai Lung isn't just a villain. He's a lesson about what happens when love and pride collide. So maybe Tai Lung wasn't evil. Maybe he was just a student who wanted to be seen and never got the chance. 3. Megamind, the misunderstood genius. Now we move to Megamind, one of DreamWorks' most creative takes on the villain story. On the surface, Megamind looks like your classic bad guy. Blue skin, sharp teeth, and a huge ego. But once you hear his story, it's hard not to see him in a completely different light. Megamind didn't choose to be the villain. From the start, life pushed him into that role. As a kid, he was sent to Earth and ended up in prison instead of a loving home, while his rival Metro Man grew up adored by everyone. Megamind tried to fit in, but every time he did something good, people laughed at him or told him he didn't belong. So he decided, if the world wants me to be the bad guy, then fine. I'll be the best bad guy ever. That's what makes his story so powerful. Deep down, Megamind just wanted purpose and acceptance. His inventions, his flair for drama, even his wild plans, they all came from a need to prove that he mattered. When he finally defeats Metro Man, he realizes victory means nothing without someone to care about or fight for. That's when we see who he truly is. Not a villain, but a lonely genius who just needed a chance to be good. Megamind reminds us that sometimes people act out because that's the only way they've learned to get attention. Under all the sarcasm and chaos, he's just a guy who wanted to be seen. 4. Eris, the goddess of chaos. Next up is Eris, the goddess of chaos from Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. She's one of DreamWorks' most mysterious villains. Powerful, clever, and unpredictable. But unlike other villains who want control, Eris doesn't care about ruling anyone. She just wants to shake things up. At first, that sounds like pure evil. Who would want to cause chaos on purpose? But if we look closer, her actions start to make more sense. Eris doesn't create chaos just to watch the world burn. She uses it to test people, to see what they're really made of. When everything goes wrong, who do we become? That's what she wants to find out. When she tricks Sinbad into stealing the Book of Peace, she's not doing it because she hates humans. She's challenging them, daring them to prove they're better than the messy, selfish creatures she thinks they are. And in the end, when Sinbad risks his life to keep his promise, she actually keeps her word and lets him go. That moment shows us something important. Eris isn't a liar. She plays fair, in her own chaotic way. Maybe that's the real message. Chaos isn't always evil. Sometimes it's what pushes us to grow. Eris isn't the destroyer of order. She's the reminder that perfection doesn't exist. Without a little disorder, there's no change, no learning, and no adventure. So maybe Chaos and Eris herself aren't the villains of the story. Maybe they're what make the story worth telling. 5. General Mandible, Control for Survival. Now let's talk about General Mandible from Ants. He's not as flashy or funny as other DreamWorks villains, but he's one of the most realistic. Mandible believes that strength and order are the only things keeping his colony alive. To him, individuality is weakness, and freedom is a threat. When we first meet him, his plan sounds extreme. He wants to wipe out the weaker ants and build a new colony made only of strong, obedient soldiers. It's cold, cruel, and terrifying. But when you listen to his reasoning, it's clear he truly believes he's doing what's best for his world. The colony has always depended on strict order, and Mandible thinks he's simply taking that idea to its logical end. It's easy to hate him, but he's also a warning. Mandible shows what happens when control becomes an obsession. He confuses safety with domination and discipline with purpose. In his mind, he's saving his colony. But in reality, he's destroying the very thing that makes it alive. Choice. And that's what makes him such an interesting villain. He's not a monster. He's a leader who took a good idea, teamwork, and structure way too far. General Mandible reminds us that too much control can be just as dangerous as chaos. Sometimes, in trying to protect what we love, we end up crushing it instead. The hidden message: why DreamWorks humanizes villains. So what's the bigger picture here? Why does DreamWorks make its villains feel so real, so human, even when they're not human at all? It's because DreamWorks doesn't want to tell us simple good versus evil stories. They want to show that every person or creature has a reason for what they do. Their villains aren't just there to be defeated. They're there to make us think. Each of them represents something we all deal with. Lord Farquaad shows what happens when we chase perfection instead of happiness. Tai Lung shows how rejection can twist ambition into anger. Megamind shows that people labeled as bad might just be misunderstood. Eris teaches that chaos isn't always wrong. It's part of life. And General Mandible shows how control can go too far. Through these characters, DreamWorks is saying something powerful. No one sees themselves as the villain. Everyone believes they're doing the right thing, even when they're not. That's why their stories hit harder, because deep down, we see bits of ourselves in them. DreamWorks humanizes villains to remind us that morality isn't black and white. The real world is full of people who make mistakes for the right reasons, and sometimes even the bad guys are just people who took a wrong turn. When we look back at all these DreamWorks villains, one thing stands out. None of them are truly evil. They all wanted something that, on some level, makes sense: order, recognition, purpose, truth, or safety. The problem wasn't their dreams, it was how far they went to reach them. That's what makes DreamWorks stories so special. They remind us that life isn't a simple battle between good and bad. It's about people, or even gods and ants, who make choices based on fear, pride, or love. Sometimes they get it wrong, but that doesn't mean they're beyond understanding. Maybe that's the dark truth. Villains are just heroes whose stories took a different turn. And maybe, if we looked at things from their point of view, we'd realize they were never the villains at all.